Maddie, back for the second half of today's show, switching gears here into the Champions League, my favorite tournament, and I know your favorite tournament as well. We got 4 fixtures upcoming this week, Tuesday, Wednesday fixtures, and 4 more next week. So let's do a quick walkthrough of the 4 games we're looking at for this week.
Yeah, so let's start off with Shakhtar against Bayern Munich. I don't know, I mean, Shakhtar are just that team we were talking about that just, no one really cares about what they do in the league. But then when the Champions League rolls down, it's
they
like,
cause a little trouble sometimes.
Hey, what's up? And they have basically the best striker in the Champions League this year, in Luis Adriano, who has 9 goals in 6 games, which is, from what I understand, pretty good.
Quite good, yeah.
So, I mean, basically Shakhtar's, chances in this tie hinge on if Luis Adriano can score hat-tricks in back-to-back games.
I don't know if it's that dire, but I mean, they're definitely the underdog here.
Yeah, of course. I'm exaggerating obviously quite a bit there, but
I did tell you they were going to get out of the group stage, if you remember that one.
Oh yeah,
Shakhtar, my boys.
Yeah, I mean, Shakhtar, that, like we said, that team that just everyone kind of looks at when the draw comes out, you're like, well, we know who they are, and we know they can do it a little bit, but they seem to find a way every year to
get out of the group. Yeah.
So especially with all the unrest in their country right now, it also doesn't help. But I don't know, going up against Bayern Munich isn't going to be easy.
No, certainly not.
Let's see. I think the last segment when we mentioned who scored for them, you got like Götze and Ribery and Robin and Müller and Lewandowski, and you got Neuer and goal. I mean, I don't know. I would pick Bayern Munich here without shadow of a doubt. But I think a big part of this tie is going to come down to Luis Adriano and how well he can maybe do for.
Honestly, I could see Shakhtar being tough at home. Maybe a 2-1 Bayern. But they're not going to have enough.
I don't think they have enough to win at the Allianz. No, yeah. I don't think they're going to. Overall, yeah, like you say, maybe at home they might. Close, they might get a 1-1 draw. They lose 1-0 or something. But even then, that's still an away goal for Bayern, right? So I wouldn't. I don't know, I'm not betting too much. I'm not putting too much stock into Shakhtar here. But again, Luis Adriano is going to be the difference here if they can make it or not.
You know what I think might actually be one of the toughest ties to call, Matt, is Chelsea and PSG.
Yeah, this is two of the biggest clubs in Europe, right? PSG have struggled a little this year. I say they struggled.
But they're right there.
They're third in the table, 2 points
Yeah.
behind. Lyon are top, Marseille are second. Just a quick side note: it's nice to see League One having the teams that should be at the top back up there.
At the top.
When Lyon won 5 straight titles, whatever it was, back in the mid-thousands.
Yeah.
So for that purpose, it's good. But funny thing from PSG, they were playing at the weekend. They were up 2-0 against Caen, I think it was. And they're cruising along, blah, 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 and, the other team scored 2-1, whatever. And, the PSG official Twitter account tweets out, PSG have parked the bus. And, make it, obviously, a dig at Chelsea for when they started parking the bus and stuff. Well, the only difference was PSG conceded.
Yeah.
Chelsea did not. So
easy to criticize, harder to execute.
Yeah, it was
right?
just so much irony. You're taking the mick out of the team you're playing this week, and then, out of their tactics.
Bulletin board meat material.
Absolutely, right? And then you give up the goal. I don't know, it's just kind of funny. That's a poor result for PSG at home to draw like that. But
another side note about PSG, Matt, I don't know if you saw it or not. Zlatan Ibrahimovic has henna tattoos right now all over his body. I think 15 or 16 of them. Yeah, they were signed signatures from people who are actually starving, in the area.
Really?
Yeah, who don't have enough food or a place to live. I think the intent of it was to try to draw attention to the cause a little bit by everyone questioning he made sure to kind of. Zlatan likes to walk around and flex and do his
Absolutely,
thing.
he does.
But he made sure to do it, I think, even more so, and that the signatures would be photoed and that he'd be asked questions about it to raise awareness. So I think that's a pretty cool thing to do and a unique way to try to get a message out. So
Ibrahimovic gets
shout out to Ibrahimovic for that.
I'm a big Ibrahimovic guy.
Me too.
I mean, he's arguably...
He's a character,
He is a character, definitely. But I think he's easily one of the best strikers in the world, and he has been for the last
long time.
Forever, it seems. Yeah. I mean, the guy honestly still feels like he's been around forever.
He says he's playing max 2 more years, and that this might be his last.
Just be done with it. I don't know. I mean, Ibrahimovic is, he has so much confidence and arrogance. It's through the roof. And you read some of the interviews, and it's who's the greatest Swede ever? And it's me. Well, maybe, but
yeah, but there's just
there are a couple of tennis players. I think won a couple of Grand Slams over the
years.
That
Becker guy was, he's German. Stefan Edberg.
I mean, come on. So, but can't knock his can't knock his hustle and his confidence. And at the end of the day, he backs it up. He's a great player, and he's always fun to watch.
Even though he does kind of border on that arrogance, confidence, he tiptoes that line a little bit. I could imagine him being a pretty good and passionate teammate.
Absolutely,
I feel like he'd stand up for his guys and really.
He's a tough guy.
Yeah,
he won't. I mean, obviously in soccer, it's not like hockey where we get to drop the gloves and fight and stuff. But I'm pretty sure if soccer had that, he'd be a guy who would score 30 goals a year and drop the gloves a bunch of times. Like, I mean, he's just a good dude. You can just tell from the way he is. And yeah, he comes off as arrogant and cocky a bit too much, but it doesn't matter because he just backs it up.
I'm sure a portion of his childhood shaped him as well. Coming from the Balkan War, he's half Bosnian, half Croatian, born in Sweden. So the allegiances are kind of all over the place. Yeah, and he said it was never a question that he would play for Sweden because that's kind of where he grew up playing soccer. And I think I can respect that.
Oh, yeah,
if you have two different backgrounds like that, how do you choose one over the other within your own family dynamic? It makes sense.
And he's had a great career in Sweden. Like, for Swedish
and he's a legend over there overall.
I mean, I think, just quick side note on Ibrahimovic here in Sweden, it's just the fact that they haven't quite done too well in, like, the major tournaments. Like the Euros and the World Cups and stuff. Like,
for the most part, he's been pretty much a one-man band like Ronaldo, but maybe less talent.
He needs, like, Freddie Lundberg and Henrik Larsson back.
Exactly.
Some of those kind of guys.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to call that PSG-Chelsea. I think a draw is going to be good for Chelsea.
For the game today? Yeah. Who do you think is going to go through, though?
I still think Chelsea.
Yeah.
I could see 1-1 today and then 1-0 or 2-1 Chelsea at the home leg.
The other big part about here for PSG is that for this tie this week, they have no Marquinhos, no Lucas, no Johan Cabaye, and Javier Pastore is like a 98% chance he's not playing.
You can't just put me on blast, Matty. You both have Bayern going through. I have Chelsea. Who's your pick in Chelsea PSG to advance?
Chelsea.
You've learned your lesson in the Premier League, have you?
No, I don't know. I just don't know if PSG... Just a little too inconsistent still for my liking.
Yeah.
Whether that, Cavani can be so good at times and just disappear for a month.
It's funny that you say that because Chelsea is the model of consistency.
Yeah. Having said that, I was reading earlier that I don't know, after a while you just kind of assume people just score, and Diego Costa, you just assume he scores. He hasn't scored in the Champions League this year. So
I think that could change.
I think it could probably change as well, but this is a really, really exciting tie. So
for sure. I think Schalke Real Madrid too. I mean, I'm taking it, of course, take Real Madrid to go through.
Yeah, I think everyone will.
I don't know that it's going to be in super, thumping, convincing fashion here. As you mentioned, Real's not a team to blow out teams anyways, and Schalke's no joke.
The big problem here for Schalke is we were doing a bit of research beforehand. Is injuries for Schalke. Julian Draxler is out.
That's big.
Jefferson Farfan is out.
That's not small.
What?
Another way to say big.
Apparently. They have a couple of other guys who, I'll be honest, I don't quite know as well in terms of like Bass and Goretzka, I think is how you say his name. Farman, who I know a little bit about, he's out as well. Janklas Hanselaar has
Farmhand?
Farman? Farman? I'm a little unsure on the pronunciation here. But Janklas Hanselaar is apparently like possibly a doubt for this game, and he's like their goal scorer. He's a guy who finds the back of the net for them.
He's the definition of a striker. I know we talk about, poaching strikers, opportunistic strikers, but he brings nothing when he isn't scoring. Like he has to score. Well, it's not that, he's not super aggressive or fast or pushing up on the defenders and making them work particularly hard. I don't know that he's a traditional hold-up man who's going to get his guys behind him all that involved. He needs to score to be effective. He's very one-dimensional.
The good thing for him, though, is he does tend to score quite a bit.
He does, yes.
To be fair to him.
And the same thing when he plays for Holland, too. He comes in and he'll bag the goal, but he doesn't really get the other guys involved. Yeah, like a Robin Van Persie will link everyone into the
I will say about Huntelaar is that there's across Europe, especially when you follow the sport like as closely as we do and stuff, there's a lot of guys who a lot of people don't really know about. But like Huntelaar is a guy, in my opinion, who just flies under the radar.
He's been under the radar for a number of years.
Who a lot of people just don't really know about, and they're like, I don't know, whenever he leaves Schalke and goes to, I don't know, let's say he goes to Liverpool, for example. And people will be like, oh, damn, this guy scores like a goal more than every other game. You're like,
then you notice,
I didn't really know who this guy. And so I mean, he does score, and like you say, maybe he doesn't bring.
He's also a product of the team he plays on too. How much publicity does a Schalke get, other than from Schalke fans?
Well, I mean, they've been a pretty mainstay for the most part in Germany for the last.
In Germany, but I mean, is Schalke a team known outside of Germany? The way a Bayern is.
I think they kind of are. I would say, yeah. They had Raúl for a couple of years, right? After he left Real Madrid.
That was probably, at least from our generation, when I think they were at their best. When Raúl was still there. They're pretty solid.
They were in the Champions League in those years and pounding along. So, I don't know. I think even with a full-strength side, especially, I mean, missing Draxler is going to be huge for Schalke. I mean, that's... you talk about an underrated player who not many people probably know about, Julian Draxler. But even with Draxler and Huntelaar, if he was fit in Farfan, I still think Real Madrid would pretty much, I wouldn't say cruise, but they would be comfortable. But they will cruise, I think, over against Schalke.
I wouldn't surprise me if 2-1 here and a 3-1 in Madrid kind of thing.
Perhaps I was going to say though, it wouldn't surprise me if Real Madrid just went there 4-0.
Really?
And just said, you know what, we're not going to mess around here. and just get it done with. But Real Madrid also have a couple of injuries. Obviously, we mentioned James Rodriguez broke his foot, I think, a week and a half ago. Obviously, your boy Modric has been out. Sergio Ramos is out. Sami Khedira is out, and so is Contral. So
luckily they do have
maybe a
touch
have
of depth.
Tony Cruz and one or two other guys, Isco and Balabra. I mean, the Real Madrid's roster is endless.
They should have enough to get by, but the only thing I would worry about a little bit is maybe it upsets the chemistry and balance of the side because they've been tending to feature their A team quite a bit. But I got Madrid comfortably. You as well?
Oh, yeah.
Porto Basel.
First of all, both teams will love this draw.
Yes.
Because it's a legitimate chance to make it into the quarters. But I can't see you. This is Porto every day for me. Here they have Jackson Martinez, who scored 5 goals in the group stage. One of 6 guys who scored 5 goals in the group stage. Rob just pointed to Mario Mandzukic of Atletico, who we will talk about next week when they play in their game.
He's banged in 1 or 2 over there.
5
pretty
goals.
well.
I think 5 goals in 6 games in Champions League.
Curiously, don't see Lewandowski's name on there. Just saying.
Okay. And also, we obviously mentioned just then Jackson Martinez.
Jackson Martinez
is a really good player, like Colombian international, really, really good player. But Yaxim Brahimi as well, of Algeria, is that? I think he's Algerian, Rob. Just trying to define the flag there for a second. He scored 4 goals in the group stage. So Porto just been in the Champions League forever. I mean, obviously they won the tournament a decade ago now of Mourinho.
Yeah,
it's got to be now
2003 or something like that. Yeah.
So Porto,
most boring football ever, but
doesn't matter though, does it? Right. But yeah, I mean, Porto just dominate the Portuguese league for the most part. They actually are second this year, though.
You just came in there so quick, didn't allow me to give any love for FC Basel or give any kind of Austin Powers joke before we got off.
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Basel. Matt does not see you guys advancing. Basel did quite well to get through the group stage, though. I think credit to them for that.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, they are first in their league. Who did Basel have in their group? Do you remember?
I think it was a Liverpool group.
It was, yeah. Yeah, good point. So.
Which I guess the Liverpool was almost like a free win for everybody the way they performed in Champions League.
Shots fired.
Ludo Goretz giving them a run in Liverpool, if you recall.
Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah. I think it was a Gerrard 90-minute penalty to save the day.
It was, yeah. I'd be curious to see what happens next year without Gerrard, to save the day for Liverpool.
Yeah, but I got Porto going through as well.
But yeah, I don't think there's any question about this is going to be Porto. It's not a knock on what Basel offer, but it's just I think Porto with Martinez and Brahimi, I don't think there's going to be enough to.
So I have a dual question for you, Matt, with these fixtures. Question 1, they kind of go together, would be who do you think is most likely to upset a favorite? And question 2 would be if you're thinking Basel Porto, do you consider that fixture close enough, or do you think that it's still a notable upset if Basel were to win?
Jeez, that's a good question. The first question, is PSG beating Chelsea an upset? That's the problem. It's
I know because they're both seem close on level, as do Basel and Porto. So you almost wonder Shakhtar over Munich or Schalke over Madrid as
if
an
I had to pick one, Shakhtar, just because Schalke just have nobody on their team right now. But I still don't see it.
I guess PSG's an upset though. Chelsea's number 1 in the English league. They were, the favorite team in the draw. It's a safer pick, but
yeah, but PSG, it's not, it's not like they have no good players.
Okay, let's rephrase then and say which of the favorites is most likely to lose. I would say Chelsea to PSG.
Chelsea then, yeah. I would, I would agree with that. As for your second part about Porto Basel, I would say it is a pretty close, but I think Porto are just a better team. I mean, they romped. Who was it? They hammered someone
they're pretty
8-0, right?
Competition soccer experience too. I think as a club, and that can really help in a situation where you're facing a team like Basel, who doesn't have a wealth, I guess I'll say, of Champions League success / experience in general.
Right.
In a matchup like that, I think that can make all the difference.
Yeah, because it was Porto who beat Bate Borisov 6-0, and also in that group that Shakhtar won 7-0. Against Bate, who just got hammered every week, it seemed.
Yeah, Shakhtar, I remember, I think it was 2-2. They blew late to Porto. They were up 2-0, and they conceded twice. And that would have gotten them the 1 seed and all that.
Because it was also Jackson Martinez. Not Jackson Martinez. Gustav, what's his name? Yeah, Adriano, sorry. He scored like 6 goals in one game, whatever it was.
That's not bad.
It's not bad.
That's okay.
It was 5 or 6.
Not to go too forward, Matt, but super juicy Champions League fixture next week with Man City Barcelona.
Yeah, that's a nice game.
Actually, into that one.
Like you said, we won't get too far into it. Like the games next week, Man City, Barca, Juve, Dortmund's a great game. Arsenal, Monaco is probably the least advertising, and then you also got Bayer Leverkusen, Atletico Madrid. I mean,
I think to a casual fan, though, Man City and Barca just pops.
Oh, 100%. Oh, 100%.
What's that, number 2 versus number 2 in each table, I think?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Juicy matchup.
Absolutely. And I mean, you got the Juve Dortmund game. I think is the other big juicy game in the whole round. Actually, I mean, you got to take out what Dortmund are in the league.
Yeah, it's hard to do that in a way when you're.
But they cruised through the group stage. They had Arsenal.
Maybe
in that
they're
group.
taking this more seriously this year.
I mean, they were the finalists 2 years ago when they lost to Bayern, 2 or 3 years ago. So I mean, yeah, we'll talk about those games more in depth next week, but definitely something to look forward to.
Moving on quickly, Matt, to the Europa League. Yeah. An absolute ton of fixtures upcoming here. What are some of the ones that catch your attention? I can tell you myself, Tottenham, Fiorentina, Liverpool, Besiktas, and I think Wolfsburg and Sporting should be 3 of the juicier matchups.
Can I just read you the whole fixture list because it's pretty good. It's pretty good, right? Yeah. I mean, I'm not literally going to read you the wall, but
read me give us some of the other notable ones. Yeah.
PSV, Zenit St. Petersburg. I mean, PSV aren't quite what they used to be, but you know, it's just I think more maybe of a name matchup.
Yeah.
But still, you know, it's a game you tune in to watch. Let's just say that. Roma play Feyenoord, which I think is going to be a good matchup. Torino play Athletic Bilbao, another good game. Trabzonspor, Napoli. Obviously, Napoli are doing pretty okay in Serie A, even though they are.
Celtic Inter too.
Yeah,
that's name recognition.
That is.
Yeah.
That will get a lot of attention back home in England.
Yeah, I always find the Scottish English side versus the top Italian side is always interesting.
Celtic and Rangers have been in Champions League a bunch of times, and they played all these big clubs before, right? So that's gonna be a good tie. Sevilla, Borussia Mönchengladbach is a game I'm really looking forward to because you got Sevilla. I think did we say they're 3rd or 4th in the Liga? Mönchengladbach in the same position in Germany. I think they're 3rd now. So there's a bunch of really really good games. I'm a big fan of Europa League. I think the qualifying process and like to get into the group stage is kind of boring and not all that interesting. And even some of the teams you see in the group stage, there's always teams every year. I'm like, who are you?
But then sometimes they get out though. It's also like I was going to say it's kind of when we were discussing the FA Cup earlier that it's a similar situation where you know these are these teams' opportunities to showcase what they have and who they are that they don't get otherwise.
Because the teams that like some of these teams in like some of the less but the league isn't as strong in their country. This is their like Champions League qualification process.
Yeah.
They get automatic qualification into like the Belgian team. I mean, I know Anderlecht are in, but like other teams like that who like Greek teams and stuff like that, who don't always necessarily get a straight automatic progression into Champions League, they get automatic into Europa League.
Mm-hmm.
So I find always every year that when the knockout stage comes around, you get really good matchups. And this is just the first round of them.
Yeah.
And we rattled off 3/4 of the
games,
I mean, we didn't even mention Everton's game, Olympiakos' game. And we mentioned Napoli. Ajax are in this tournament still. Dynamo Kiev, Dynamo Moscow, Anderlecht, Villarreal. I mean,
Tottenham Fiorentina is
the worst
for me,
game.
If I had to pick one, I'd go Tottenham Fiorentina. Yeah.
Yeah. Rob's chair broke. Sorry.
Always puts me on
every
blast.
Time.
He's tripping on his own ankles over here. I play through it. He sees my chair. Make a note.
I just gotta let the people know what's happening, right?
I feel really short right now.
Tottenham Fiorentina is a really good matchup, like you say. I think Torino Athletic Bilbao is the opportunity to be good, and Wolfsburg Sporting Lisbon. I think Liverpool Besiktas is going to be a good matchup here as well. So
that's the one you're looking at.
Yeah, I mean honestly, there's like 6 games here. I'm really curious to follow, and I'm looking forward to Thursday. I mean, looking forward to Champions League, but I'm looking forward to Thursday to see what rolls around for the Europa League. And also, quick side note: Markovic of Liverpool has been suspended 4 European games. So I mean it's not like it's Stevie G or Sturridge or anyone, but it's still a guy that he doesn't start every game, but he plays around, he plays enough to make it.
He plays pretty much every game though.
Yep.
Yeah, off the bench and whatnot. Final few minutes, Maddie. Our new segment, Studs and Duds. Who do you have as your stud for this week?
I have that man who scored quite a few goals for Bayer Leverkusen at the weekend, Bas Dost. I mean, he's just been on fire this year. I'm just trying to pull up his numbers for the season because they're just ridiculous. 10 goals in 15 games across all competitions. 9 goals in 10 Bundesliga games.
Is he a Dutch international?
Let's check. He isn't, no. Well, he's Dutch, but he hasn't got full international yet.
Oh, he's just played the
he's
junior level?
Under 21 is the highest he's gone so far. He's only 25.
I think they need to give this guy a chance. At least
let's be honest. I think he's
going
to be calling up soon if you're scoring goals at this pace. Right?
Oh, and also you consider the age of some of those guys like Snyder and Klaas-Jan Huntelaar are getting up there. Even Van Persie's getting up there too.
Oh yeah.
It's time to give, I think, a little bit of a youth infusion in the Dutch squad.
You know who this guy reminds me of this year? He's Harry Kane of Germany.
After you batted the mic.
After I hit the mic.
Matt doing his best house cat impersonation here on Footy Roundup. Batting his mic like a... It's too funny. Yeah, Harry Kane, I've been telling you now for a couple of weeks, I think has been absolutely phenomenal.
It's phenomenal. But anyway,
you even mentioning those two guys in the same sentence tells you what level Bastos is capable of reaching.
He's been on fire.
And plus on top of that, like, what a cool name. Like, how do you not take that seriously?
Absolutely, right? And that's like
that
legitimate
sounds like
name.
a guy who's going to score.
I isn't like some, it's not like a Brazilian guy who like becomes like Kaká from like 6 different words. It's like his name is legitimately Bastos. It's a great name.
Yeah, it's not Rosa Maria, Daria, De Souza, Fernandez, Fred.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, it's his name is, and he's scoring goals. So, I mean, you score 4 goals in one weekend, you're going to be my stud every week.
Matt, there's been a lot of options for studs and duds this week. I was debating, I think Harry Kane would have been a valid one as well.
Yep.
I went with Croatian international Andre Kramaric, who opened his goal-scoring account in back-to-back games. Basically the only person on Leicester with a pulse right now. That team is just a disaster.
Mark Schwarzer, don't forget.
He had a left-footed one-time strike to the back of the net against Arsenal, header top corner against Aston Villa. What I touched upon before, you were comparing Bastos to Kane. I think Andre Kramaric is very similar to Kane in the sense that multi-talented, can score in a variety of ways, comfortable with either foot, comfortable with his head, not a speed or strength player, just a very technically sound player. And I think now this may get him to really settle there, and I hope they can put a little bit more around him to make this team competitive, because it looks surely like they're going to be going down.
Yeah, I think you'll see how good he really is next year.
Yeah, with an extra piece or two to try to get him back up.
But also being in the championship, you'll see him like, I don't know, I imagine if he's assuming he stays, which I'm sure he is.
Yeah, I think he'd be there at least one more year.
I imagine he'll end up banging 20 plus goals there easily in the championship.
I would say so.
At least so.
Matty, your dud.
My dud is Atletico Madrid. Just losing 2-0 away to Celta Vigo. Pretty much inexcusable. You know, it's a game you shouldn't be dropping points in. So yeah, I mean, I'll keep it short and simple. It's Atletico, disappointing result for them.
Not acceptable. On the topic of not acceptable, Matt, and don't punch me across here. I don't think you'll be able to get past your mic trap that you have built over there. But Roma drew at home versus last place Parma. Just to recap, last place by a considerable margin.
Yeah, 6 points.
Last place that doesn't pay their players' wages. Last place that, for all intents and purposes, doesn't really seem to care about much this season. But it was enough to go into Roma and get a 0-0. And to make things worse, Matty, like you mentioned previously, Juve drawing 2-2 to Cesena, the second last team in the league. Imagine the money you'd make saying draws for the top 2 teams against the bottom 2 teams in Italy this week. Those are just absolutely ridiculous results.
Raking it in.
Yeah, it's a huge not to overstate it here, but a huge squandered opportunity for Roma. If they had legitimate Serie A aspirations, you got to think that result could be the death knell for them, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree, because they're
last place.
That's basically all that matters, right?
Yeah. But I don't care if you're playing in Centennial College out here on the lawn and using a couple garbage cans as goals. Like, you don't lose to a last place side when you're Roma. I feel like Totti would put in some work out here in front of Centennial.
I think he would. I think he puts in work every week anyway, no matter where he is. But the thing is that Roma just looks like they're going to settle for finish second place again.
Yeah.
You know, the lack of
they're just in a holding pattern with Juve.
Yeah. Hasn't won is just like, I think he's got one Serie A title.
Does it almost feel like him being an institution for Roma is similar to Stevie G in Liverpool and not being able to taste much in the way of success?
Very similar. Because, I mean, you know, Totti, I'd have to look at the numbers, exactly what trophies they've won, exactly. But, you know, at least Stevie G has a Champions League trophy. Yeah. Totti doesn't have that. So, I don't know. I
thought he was also going in an era more in his prime.
Totti has a World Cup.
He was also going in an era of his prime when he was going against Inter and AC, who were stupid strong.
We rattled off earlier all those names for that AC team. Yeah, I mean, so, but like, back to what you say. I mean, it's inexcusable. And also, this isn't my dud, but you kind of got to say Hamburg losing 8-0 at Bayern Munich isn't very good either.
Bayern Munich winning 8-0 could also be construed as a stud, too.
So, yeah,
it's funny how those go hand in hand.
You flip it each way, right? So yeah. Interesting week.
Yeah, that's it for this week. Next week we'll be back going through the big 4 leagues again. Also, I guess, reviewing the Europa League results and then previewing the new set of Champions League fixtures, as well as going over the fixtures in Champions League that we talked about today. Footy Roundup signing off. Thanks for listening.